I'm delighted to welcome today very knowledgeable Peter Leeson from an organisation called Orchestrated Knowledge. And Peter is a culture and transformational, a consultant specialising in culture and transformation. So welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to be here.
So where is here? Where are you based, Peter?
Right now I am based in Milton Keynes, and next week I'm moving to Cambridgeshire, to Ely.
Right, you're just hopping across.
Yes, otherwise I have worked on every continent except South America, which I still hope to get to at some point. And I probably should say I haven't worked on Antarctica either, which I'm now too old to ever get to.
Oh, never say never. Never say never.
Oh, you need strong young people to go to Antarctica, not OAPs.
So how come you've travelled so much, Peter?
Because the opportunity was there. So my grandparents came from 4 different nations, met in Belgium to fight World War I in one way or another. I married a German. I've just always been ready to move and interested. And that's probably what got me more and more into the concept of culture and trying to understand the different ways in which people think and express themselves, as well as just the things people do.
So you mentioned various other nationalities, so you can't just throw that in and go away with all the beans. Tell us more.
My grandparents were Irish, Canadian, Belgian, and depending on the years, German or Danish. So from that little region between the two that switched sides on a regular basis. Try and get this correct without spitting. Schleswig-Holstein. And as I said, my Irish grandfather was coming back from India, where he was in the army, and stopped over in Belgium, where he met a German nurse and fell in love. And my Canadian grandfather came over also to fight in the war, where he met a Belgian lady and stayed. And so basically, I am British without being English or Welsh or Scottish or Irish or anything else. I'm just the bland British. I probably shouldn't say this at this time, but probably more European than British.
Okay.
I've just heard a number of doors slamming in the background.
and I detect a hint of an accent. So although British, where's the accent? I guess all the influences from your multicultural background.
Yes, so I was raised in 3 languages. I speak French and Dutch fluently. My wife is German. We lived in France. We lived in the United States, and I just got an accent more perverted every time we moved.
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So you really, really, truly are living what you consult in, culture and transformation.
Yes, yes. I love change. They say people are resistant to change. I'm just the opposite. I love to change. I would like to have moved more often. It's just, there's something new out there. Let's turn the page, start a new chapter whenever we can. That's what makes life exciting.
Absolutely, I'm of the same ilk, and a lot of people, including my family, don't understand me, and I'm always, so interested in new things, new learnings. In the last few days, I've read 2 books about topics that I know a little bit about. I know now, can deepen a bit more and have a conversation with knowledge. But I've done that through the Audible, excuse me, Audible. So I'm listening to, I'm learning while I'm doing other things. So Your life's just so interesting at the moment, really, really interesting. So
Yes,
came to
I
be.
never got into audiobooks. I find I miss so much in them. I have to keep on rewinding a little bit and going back slightly to find what I missed. I still like paper books whenever I can. I just finished a book on metrics, and about to start this one, which is called Humanocracy, which is about getting people out of themselves, which comes highly recommended to me. It's just things I don't know about. Any topic is interesting.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have a curious mind, isn't it? But although
Yes,
people like us are scary to people who don't think the way we think, and are kind of put themselves in boxes without even realizing there is a box there. Whereas we go, well, what box? What do you mean?
yeah, exactly.
We're all
Uh,
different.
I made this comment to someone recently, and I said to him, just think there is no box.
Mm,
Okay, it's not even a question of thinking out of the box. It's not there.
yeah,
There's no box big enough to hold all the different sides of me.
yeah, absolutely. Fabulous, fabulous. So tell us how you became a consultant in culture and transformation, Peter.
Oh dear, that goes back. So a long time ago, I guess not quite 50 years ago, I started off as a professional cartoonist.
Mm,
Okay, you have to start somewhere. And then I got very, very hungry. So I decided I needed to find a job that actually paid some money, and looked around and found a lot of people were looking for what was then called computer programmers. Okay, we don't use that term anymore. It's IT engineers and stuff like that. But at the time they were computer programmers. So I thought I can do this part-time. And of course I got into it and went up full-time. Got hired by companies that sent me around. So I was responsible for the bookkeeping software for Levi Strauss jeans across all of Europe. I got hired away by another company, headhunted away. They sent me to France, they sent me to the US, and it just kept on snowballing. And while I was in the US, I got headhunted by some people from Carnegie Mellon University who were looking at starting up a process improvement industry.
mhm.
So they wanted someone they could send to Europe, and sent me back to Europe. And basically, it was going into audit companies according to a process theory. And so I started off doing terrible audits. I had my book in my hand. If you do what my book says, you're right. If you don't do what my book says, you're wrong, and I will fail you. And I've soon realized this isn't helping anybody. This is of no use whatsoever. And I started becoming more of a consultant, telling people why this could help and how it could help them and what would happen if they didn't do it properly. And then I decided that actually the concept of process is just a tool. What is important is quality, however you define that. And quality is made by people. And process and standards and metrics and all that are only valid if they are helping people produce better quality with less effort.
Absolutely.
And so I went into the quality aspect and the people aspect, and ended up in the culture aspect. And I define culture as the way staff act when management isn't watching.
Mm. That's a good description, yeah.
And so it's trying to find out what are the things that are frustrating, what are the things that are stressing them, how can we improve this, how can we align management's vision, when they have one, to the frustration of the people on the front line or on the factory floor, or whatever you want to call them. And avoid running into bureaucracy. So I have helped a number of small companies that are growing, where suddenly the brilliant entrepreneur discovers that they now have to become a CEO, a managing director, and put in place process and metrics and KPIs and controls and all this stuff, but still want to maintain the friendly family atmosphere. So it's trying to find each time what is the level that is useful, that is necessary, and that will not put people off. Mainly it's because I believe that whatever your job, you should feel that you can go home at the end of the day satisfied of a job well done, have a family life, have a good night's rest, be able to relax on the weekend without having to rush through to finish something because some deadline has been promised and something has failed. So it's just trying to get the whole thing lined up to deliver high quality systematically in order to improve the work-life balance of the people doing the work.
You just said the most important word in my life, which is balance. I bang on
Yes.
about balance the whole time, and it's when our balance is out of kilter that we get ourselves into trouble.
Yes.
And time and time and time again, our life is a kind of what do you call it? It's a balancing act, isn't it? We've got so many stresses and worries and pressures and so on and so forth that are kind of dumped on us these days. It's almost inevitable that many people will lose sight of who they are, never mind what their business goals are and their vision and all the rest of it. You know, people are just getting crushed and squashed. So how do you guide people to find their balance, what's right for them within the workplace context in particular?
Well, one of the things that I try to focus on is, why would you want to work here? So starting at the senior management level, I am asking them, why would somebody want to work here in 5, 10, 20 years' time when they know they can earn more money somewhere else? And that's the challenge they've got to find. If I want to attract the best people, offer the best conditions, I need to have a motivator stronger than just money, because they will find more money somewhere else every time. And ask that from the people themselves. What is it that makes you want to work here? Oh, well, I like the cutting edge technology. Oh, I know that this is on the ground floor of a revolution. Oh, I know this fantastic thing is going to happen, and so on. And it's the level of building up this level of trust. One of the things that I think we misunderstand is the impact of stress and how stress destroys people. And it's not senior management who is stressed, even though they like to talk about it while they're on the golf course. It's the people who are out of control, the people who feel they've got no control over their life. They're being pushed around. They've got their priorities being changed continuously. They don't know what's happening tomorrow. They've got no job satisfaction. And that creates all kinds of problems physically. The two biggest ones being increases in adrenaline and cortisol, which together create all kinds of health problems, including the spreading of cancer. Stress gives you cancer, and that's something people have to understand. There's a brilliant book, and I'm trying to remember his name, written by a British civil servant, Michael Marmot. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yes, yeah.
And he wrote a book, Status Syndrome.
Yeah.
And how it comes down to the fact that someone who wins an Oscar has a better life expectancy than someone who's nominated for an Oscar and doesn't win. That's extraordinary. That you see these relationships and the impact on health and on all kinds of aspects that comes from high levels of discrepancy between the wealthiest and the poorest people in a country. Can't remember his name now. There's a Danish, I think he's Danish, certainly a Scandinavian guy who's made fantastic studies on this, on the relationship between the poorest and the richest, and what this does to health, and what this does to the economy, and what this does to all kinds of things. And when you realize that in the UK today, 25% of all the money is held by 1% of the population, according to statistics I saw this week, we're really in a bad situation. We are suffering through this inequality within society. And it's something which I don't think is taken seriously, at least not by those in power, because they're in power and they have the money, so they don't really want to change things. I'm not making this political, because I don't think one side is going to do much more than the other side, but okay. Something needs to be done.
I don't think what's happening in the world at the moment, and bearing in mind we're recording this in January 2021, it's not about politics anymore. It's about good and evil and balance and common sense and integrity and all that sort of transparency, etc., etc. And you mentioned the UK, 1% of the richest people and the discrepancy, but it's worldwide. I mean, there's we're not going to go into it in this interview. That would take days on end to unravel everything. But you're absolutely spot on with the 1% and the discrepancy. And also you mentioned about the cancer and the stress. And I've endured 4 different cancers, and I was given a year to live 5 years ago. So and I beat it in 14 weeks. So we alluded earlier on to our personality styles, and we're different to lots of other people around and about. The difference makes us our personalities sort of an interesting conversation. Again, we probably haven't got time to go into this during this interview, but I call people squegs, who are square pegs in round holes, and that creates a huge level of stress in the workplace. And all of the people that I've profiled over the years using the DISC behavioural profile, which I've become an expert in over the last nearly 25 years now, it's just remarkable how so obvious it is that the management style of the leadership team is crucial to the culture of an organisation. The behavioural styles of the individuals within the organisation, that's crucial to where they are placed in the organisation. So it doesn't matter what the industry sector is, it's where you fit into that role, and whether that role plays to your behavioural strengths, plays to your skill level at the time, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole load of dynamics and balance to bring in, isn't there?
Yes. So one of the things that I'm telling people is you need to define what you mean by quality. You need to produce quality, and you need to measure the quality while you're building a product or while you're delivering a service. And people are saying, well, don't really know what that means, don't really understand it. I said, well, if you have a definition, and at the end of the day, you are feeling job satisfaction, you have probably done quality. You know it instinctively. And this job satisfaction concept, for me, if you don't have job satisfaction, you're doing a bad job. You're in the wrong place, you're at the wrong level, whatever it is, you're the squag. You need to find it. If you don't have job satisfaction, you're doing a bad job. You should stop. And it doesn't help working longer hours when you're not satisfied with your work, because you're just making it worse.
Absolutely. The longer you work, the more mistakes you make, the more disgruntled you become, the more your self-esteem goes down, the confidence goes down, etc., etc.
Yes.
It's just when you know this stuff, it's obvious, isn't it? But it's amazing how people, it's like walking through treacle for some people. And when I show them their behavioural profile, the model that I use, that I've actually had developed, I've got my own online behavioural tool. Um, I was with a lady this morning on another networking group, and she has actually changed what she's doing this whole year. She's changed her goals because of what I showed her in her behavioural profile. She's the lady is a bookkeeper, and she does a bit of training. And I said to her, well, your profile lends itself to training, not bookkeeping. So, you know, think about how you can, and her profile showed up stress, because it shows up the stress levels in the profile. And she, this morning, she announced, I was so chuffed, she said, I'm actually changing the emphasis of my business because Elaine's profile has shown me, without any shadow of a doubt, that I'm a people person and I should be doing the training. I'll still do the bookkeeping, so I keep the balance, but the balance this year is changing for me. And that's a very, very simple tool that people can use to kind of get out of being a squeg. And as I said before, it's the role that you play in life, not just in an organization. And if you're in the wrong role, you know, the wrong relationship, you know, personal relationships or family relationship, business team, you know, so on and so forth, it has a huge impact. So Peter, the situation that everybody is in the world has lived through in the last year, how does that impact on the culture, the health, etc., of what we're seeing in business today?
Well, it's a complete change, obviously, with some enormous potential benefits if it is handled correctly. So for a long time, I have been fighting against the concept that you have to leave the village and move to the city in order to get a job. Okay, I don't understand why people have to move to London or Manchester or Liverpool to get a job when they are living in a beautiful little peaceful village somewhere. The internet, the communications are there, and unless you are doing manual work in a factory or whatever, you probably don't need to physically be there. So I think this is a fantastic opportunity for the individual's well-being, as well as for solving a lot of the employment issues and relocalizing people in villages and in the countryside. The big problem I have met is that when you are in an office and you see someone in the corner who is down, who is not speaking, who is looking sad, you can go up, find out what it is, and do something about it. You do not notice the person who is not speaking on a Zoom meeting. The fact that they are not participating, they are present, they might have their camera on, but they're not participating. You do not realize that they have got a problem. And they've got a psychological problem, and a lot of people have been suffering from isolation and from anxiety and from stress because they fear that if they go out, they're going to kill their granny and so on. And this whole concept. And for me, it is management's role, responsibility to make sure that the mental health of their team or their employees is all right. They have to take control of this. They have to follow up on it. It is also with people working remotely, it is required of management to make sure that their staff have got a reasonable setup at home, that they are working on a proper office chair, which has got some sense of ergonomic well-being to it, that they have got a desk which is at the right height and so on. Because people working on the kitchen table or with a burning laptop on their knees on the couch, they're busy destroying themselves. Okay? You need to bring that in, and you need to somehow bring back the social aspect that we're missing. So we've got companies that are organizing weekly games, weekly quizzes, just something to bring people back and just have a friendly, informal chat. Obviously, they can no longer offer you the tea and biscuits or the beer and crisps that they might have been offering before, but there is something there. And then, of course, there are all the people who are stuck at home with children and who cannot get away from small children. Okay, when you've got teenagers, it's easy because they're probably sulking in their bedroom in any case, so it's much easier. But when you have got 3 or 7 or 10-year-olds, they're running around, they need attention, they want to talk to you, they want to do things, they want you to come and do something for them. And you can't concentrate on this. And hopefully, I'm going to be very controversial. I would very much like to move society away from the concept that both parents need to work. I think the unemployment concept is overblown because everybody is expected to be working. I think you should be paying people a good enough salary so that one full-time job allows them to live comfortably. And I'm in no way using gender stereotyping here, okay? I don't care which partner it is staying home, but the idea that one partner is staying home and can work with the children when the children are in school or whatever, they can actually cook a meal from scratch with fresh produce instead of artificial deep frozen microwave stuff. It just raised the morale, the happiness level, and the health of people across the nation. The CEO of PayPal has implemented a pay technique. I don't remember his name now, but has implemented a pay technique because he found out that people who were paid market value for their job or even above market value were still suffering by not being able to meet ends meet. And so he started up a review of all the staff members and found out what were their non-negotiable costs. And the idea is that when you receive your salary, once you've paid your taxes, you've paid up your student debts, you're paying for the home for an elderly parent, for the care for a disabled child, whatever it is, once all that has been paid up, you should still have 20% of your salary as disposable income at the end of the month. And that gives you some level of protection. You're no longer one payroll away from homelessness. You can invest the money, you can put it, you can do something with this. You can actually start living. And the idea of using the minimum disposable income and setting that at 20% for all employees, I think is a brilliant concept. And that should be the norm. So it's going one step beyond living wage and 15 steps beyond minimum wage, and actually making sure people have enough money to be able to live their life.
I like this man. I don't know what his name is either, but I like this Mr. Big Cheese at PayPal. What a great way to set the bar for staff.
Yes.
You know, the morale it's the balance thing again, isn't it? And you know, I'm sure that would make their the employees feel more worthwhile, and that they're contributing to, you know, to the bottom line of the business. They're enjoying themselves. their relationships at work and at home are much better as a result, etc., etc. So some years ago, I was chief executive of a law firm, and at the time there was an awful lot of polls going around and surveys about what you were talking about, you know, the quality of life, and it's why would somebody want to work at this law firm or that law firm. Every single time the surveys were run, never was pay on the top. It was always about the quality of life, etc., etc. So things haven't changed. I mean, that was many years ago, over 20 years ago. So yeah, it's interesting how society's pressures have changed, but the basic needs haven't, have they?
No. And the payroll will never be enough. And it's early 20th century, someone asked Baron Rothschild how much money was enough. He was probably the richest man in the world at the time. And they asked him how much money was enough, and he said, just a little bit more. And I think that's still true, whatever you're doing. When you are given this slight pay rise, you think, oh, wow, this is nice. With 2 months later, that pay rise has disappeared into your everyday expenses and you've forgotten about it. That's not what we're looking at. Okay, it's getting enough to live comfortably, to balance. And as I said, if it's enough to allow a family to live so that one of the partners can stay home or can do some volunteering or something else and doesn't feel obliged to go and get a job in order to earn enough money to pay for the nursery, which I still don't understand. My daughter stopped work for maternity leave, and there was discussion then as to whether she should go back to work or not. And we just put the numbers down, and we figured out that including commuting and so on, and not taking into account levels of stress and anxiety, she was working for £250 per month. Mm. Sorry, don't go back to work. Mm.
I think that's a really good illustration of how society has put so many pressures. You know, you must have a bigger house, you must have a bigger, faster car, you know, more this, more that, designer clothes, whatever it is. And actually, we can only drive one car. Those of us who are lucky to have one, we can only, you know, sleep in one bed. Why do we need, you know, massive big houses, etc., etc.? But the pressure from social media and the like is such that the young people in particular feel compelled to get bigger, better, faster, etc., when actually the opposite is true for a good quality, enjoyable, happy, healthy life.
Mm-hmm. I was reading that following, if I may already use that word, following COVID, I saw the value of Jeff Bezos' fortune today. This was a couple of days ago, and I didn't understand it, so I broke it down. And in order to reach the amount of money this man has, you would have to earn $250,000 per day from the 1st of the January of year one up to the 1st of January 2021. So for over 2,000 years, if you earn $250,000 per day, you will reach his level of wealth, and don't spend anything.
And he still wants more. And again, it goes back to the 1% that you mentioned earlier, isn't it? The 1% just seem to want, you know, Rothschild, a little bit more, and that's where it's all gone wrong. And I'm told, again, I don't intend to get involved in this conversation with it, but it dates back to 1776 when Rockefeller set up the 1% club, if you like. But it's all coming out now. It's all unraveling, and the world. I believe we're living in World War III now. Our grandparents, our parents went through World War I, World War II. This is World War III. It's a digital based, technological war. And I think it's a really exciting time to be here for those of us who are awake and know what's going on. And there's lots and lots of hope, there's lots of positivity. However, there will be casualties, as in every war. So turning back to your consultancy, Peter, what are the type of organizations that you work with?
So mostly I work with small to medium-sized companies. Particularly, there are 3 breaking points in the companies as far as I'm concerned, and that is 20, 50, and 100 employees. Those 3 points, everything changes. Once you get beyond 100, it's a slowly gradual change. It's not a breaking point anymore. But those are big culture changes. So I work with companies who are reaching or have just passed that level usually and have met with trouble. But then I have also worked with significantly larger companies, such as ING, AXA, BAE Systems, in order to help solve specific problems there. So it's really, and it's the challenge I have is that I work for companies where senior management understands that they don't have the control they want over what's happening and they need help. And of course, most senior managements never want to admit that. So it's trying to get into these businesses and say, we can do something wherever you are. It started off, I used to ask project managers or team leaders, I said, do you know why the people in your team are working here? And I was amazed they didn't. I said, well, how are you going to motivate? If you don't know who is working here to pay for a home for their parents, who is working here in order to pay off debt, who is working here in order to go and get drunk Friday night, you can't motivate these people. You have to find out what is actually their motivation. There's something in each one. Some of us want to change the world, make the world a better place. Some of us want to know that our bank account will never run empty. Okay.
It's a very simple question, isn't it? Why?
Yes.
And it's the question that's often, is it Simon, what's his name? Simon Sinek. His book, about why, and it is just such a simple thing. Why? And I find over the years I've found myself, saying to myself, questioning myself, why? Why would I do that? Why? Why does that make sense? So we need to ask ourselves the why, as well as acknowledging and understanding other people's why, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. There was forget what I was about to say. The whys, yes. Oh yes, one of the things that I work with, talking about culture change and going into business, and they give me rubbish responses. Like, I want a customer-focused culture. Say, okay, what does that mean? We put the customer first. Okay, so you're willing for your people to make a loss in order to please a customer? No. Okay, so let's go back. What does a customer-focused culture mean? What does a dynamic culture mean? Do you want people who are rule breakers or rule followers? You can't have it both ways. So you've got to try to understand that there are 100 different parameters in culture. What are your priorities? And if you don't understand that, then that's part of the why. Why do you want to change things? Why do you believe you need to improve or change your culture or your way of working? But It requires thought and it requires planning. I used to, my first question to senior management every time I go into a company is, in 2, 5, 10 years time, why will a prospect come to you rather than to your competitor? And I'm amazed that most of them don't know, can't answer the question. If you can't answer the question, you can't be leading this business. You just expect things to continue the way they are. They're not going to.
I think it's also a question of bringing in the Rudyard Kipling, who, why, what, when, how, when,
Yes.
type of thing, isn't it? So you start with the why and then you go through all the others and, why this and how and when and so on and so forth. And none of it's rocket science, is it? None of this stuff we're talking about is, you don't need to be a genius to work it out. It's plain old common sense and intuition at the end of the day. But I find it's lacking. It's lacking
Yes.
everywhere I look.
But it's difficult. It is difficult to do. And that is where the role of a consultant or a coach comes in, because I am coming into business without knowing it. I can ask the stupid questions that nobody dares to ask. I can point out the things that they have been doing for so long that they don't notice them anymore. And it's this fresh look which can change so much. And just by asking the questions, I usually get the answers.
It's really interesting. For the past 20 years on and off, 20 plus years on and off, I've been a business mentor and consultant. I no longer do that now. I concentrate more on the health side of things. However, every project that I've undertaken, my first question is always why. And then, as you say, you get dumb answers back. Well, we've always done it this way. Okay, well, why have you done it this way? Well, because we have, and this is what we've been taught, and this is what we do. And again, it goes back to the personality styles of people as well.
Yep.
And what you said about some people are followers, some people are leaders, and we can't all be everything, but we can be aware of how the interaction and interplay between the different styles does make a difference and a huge impact on the culture, because anybody can be a leader. Doesn't matter what personality style you are, but the way in which you lead and therefore the culture of the organisation will hang considerable weight on the leaders and the leadership teams, styles of behaviour and so on, and the values as well. The values is a big thing that often is overlooked.
Yes. Yeah. I'm probably shouldn't be saying this in a podcast, but I will anyway. I'm giving a talk tomorrow for the BCS, which I will send you a link to, and a link to the recording that maybe you can put then in the notes.
Sure.
That which covers a lot of these topics.
Very interesting. What's the BCS for the benefit of listeners?
It used to be the British Computer Society, but they don't want people to know that anymore. It's sort of like IBM. You're not supposed to know what the initials stand for.
Okay.
But it's to do with technology and artificial intelligence and whatever else. So it goes beyond computers today.
Okay, that sounds like it's going to be an interesting podcast for sure. And we'll put the links below when this podcast goes out, which is likely to be February, I believe.
Okay, so it should be online by then.
Cool, fabulous. Okay, so to summarize, Peter, what would you say to a person, say, who's running a 20-strong business, 20-strong employee business, and is about to perhaps ramp up their business and go to the next level? What are the things that they need to look out for? What do they need to be mindful of?
They need to put in place controls that focus on the process and practices, not on the individuals. If you're not achieving the level of performance that is expected of you, it is because the process or the organization has failed you. You need support, you need training, whatever it is. They need to understand how much control they are willing to give away. When you're running a small business, you know everybody, you've got your finger in every pie, you know what you're supposed to be doing. When your business goes beyond 20, someone else is going to start doing things. You don't know everybody. You're going to have to work on that. So how much control do you want to let go? How much of your private life are you willing to let go in order to make this happen? What are the additional things you're going to put in place to motivate your team? So for me, a manager's role before anything else is simply to motivate every individual in the team to produce high quality outcomes, whatever that means. Okay. And I specifically try to avoid defining quality, because if you want to be the best in the world or the cheapest in the world or the first in the world, that's all fine. But make sure it's defined and understood. And then you need to motivate your people. As one person, you cannot motivate them, a team of 25, 30 people. You don't have time for that, or it's a full-time job. You cannot motivate them by putting in place controls and key performance indexes and all the other stuff. So you need to find a way to move this level of understanding down to someone else. How do you going to motivate your team leaders to motivate correctly their people?
And I would go a step further then, and also say it's about self-motivation. How do you get your people to be self-motivated? How can you inspire them to be self-motivated? Then they do the job for you then, don't they? They do the job for everybody. It's team effort.
Yeah. And so the self-motivation works the other way too. Do you really want to become a full-time director? Okay, you created this business, you created this product, this service, you built it yourself from nothing. Do you really want to step back and just manage other people who are doing the work you enjoy doing? Because a lot of people would do better to hire a director. You can keep ownership of the business, hire a director who understands that side of the business, and then you can keep micromanaging things. But as a director, if you've got 30 people in the business, you can no longer micromanage. You got to establish directions.
Yeah, absolutely. I've found in all the things I've done over the years, whether it's my own businesses or helping manage other people's businesses, whether I've been managing a team of 220, over 200, the cultural change is immense between all of them, but it still boils down to motivation, inspiration, leadership, not being squegs, etc., etc. And directors can be squegs. I mean, how many times have we seen organizations run by people who are clearly outside their comfort zone? They're clearly in the wrong role, and yet, you know, even with teachers and school teachers, head teachers, I've mentored I don't know how many head teachers and teachers over the years, and so many of them go into the classroom because they love teaching. Then, oh, you're good at teaching, let's make you head of department. No, that's managing people, not teaching children. And then it's deputy head, and then it's head teacher. So I was brought in as a mentor to head teachers, supporting them to realise they were actually then running a business. You know, they've got the of the insurances, there's staff welfare, they're this and that, but they went in the profession to teachers, you know, and people realise as you go up through the ranks, as it were, of any organisation, any industry sector, it's the same thing, isn't it? The whole dynamic changes and shifts. So remember why you went into that organisation in the first place. Remember why you started to build it, and maybe things have changed and it's time for you to hand over to somebody else.
Yes, and teachers in particular, I think, have suffered from our obsession with measurement. So since Frederick Taylor in 1901 or two put this in place. It's okay, you need measurement, you need metrics, absolutely. But measurements measure the state of things. They're thermometers, not thermostats. Okay, you cannot, Mao Zedong told the people to produce larger tomatoes. Well, that doesn't work. You cannot just tell people to produce bigger tomatoes because it's not under their control. And because of this obsession with measurement that we've had for over a century now, and it's not getting any better, we focus on measuring the wrong thing. We're measuring the things that are easy to measure. So it's time and money, basically. That's what we can measure, so that's what we'll measure. We don't measure quality, we don't measure improvement, we don't measure any of that unless it can be brought down to time and quality. And then they push this one step further. So the schools in particular are being rewarded or punished based on metrics that are not necessarily relevant. And so the schools that need the most help and support because they live in because they're in difficult neighborhoods get punished because the students aren't doing good enough, producing good enough results. And so they get their budget cut. While a school that's got everything they need and is in a wealthy area and is producing high grades because the parents are pushing their kids and so on, they get more money when they don't need it. It's come back, measure the need, measure the quality, measure the improvement. Stop measuring time and money.
Exactly. It's a ridiculous way, but it's the accepted way now, unfortunately. And that's why I offer my DISC behavioural profiling tool that's online to schools free of charge at the point of use, so that young people can understand who they are, what their behavioural strengths are, what kind of work is likely to suit them, what kind of needs they will they will have in the world. So for example, if I was at school now, I have no doubt whatsoever that I probably would have had a diagnosis of ADHD or something like that, because I'm interested in shiny, bright new things. I'm always learning, always want to know more. I work at a fast pace, I speak at a fast pace. Everything about me is not what you want in the classroom. So therefore I made my own entertainment, and half the time I bunked off school because it was so boring. If it wasn't for the sports field and me excelling in that area, I don't know how I would have got through my teens, really. But it's about looking at ourselves, whether we're a director, an owner, entrepreneur, manager, employee, whatever wherever we're at in the world stage, look at ourselves, define what quality and happiness and health means to us, and then we can start kind of looking out. But we're not taught that in schools, are we? None of that stuff.
No, and you're taught that teamwork is cheating.
Yes, yeah. Well, I don't know what's going to become of everything, but having said that, there is lots and lots of positivity, lots of good things ahead. So how can people get hold of you, Peter?
So the easiest way is www.orchestratedknowledge-com. Or you can go, if you want to speak to me, if you go to calendly.com/orchestrated knowledge, you can book a Zoom or a telephone call at a time that I'm available. You will see when I'm available. You can book a time when you are available. So that's probably the easiest.
Fabulous. So that's orchestrated, www.orchestrated-knowledge.com.
Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Peter, for your time today. Any last comments before we wrap up?
No, next year will be better. Keep positive.
Absolutely. Well, we're in this year now, aren't we? So hopefully 2021 will be
Someone pointed out to me that the name of this year is actually 2021. We let 2020 win the race against humanity. One WON.
Yes, yes. I had something sent to me which was you mentioned you started off as a cartoonist, and it was the 2021 2021, and then kind of intertwined through it using the numbers was hope, and it was very, very good. So 2021 is a year of hope and
Yes.
inspiration for many. So let's work towards that for everybody, and hope that people will gain inspiration from what they've heard today between us.
It's been a wake-up call. I think 2020 has been a wake-up call, and hopefully we will start taking more care of ourselves, of the planet, and of our fellow creatures.
Well said, Peter. And that said, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Elaine.